adopt tonight's agenda.
There you go. You're first.
I will, okay, you got me tongue-tied now. I will motion to adopt tonight's agenda. I will.
Thank you. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Call to the public. Do we have any cards this evening, Karen? So there are no public comment cards. However, is there anyone that wants to speak on anything that was not on the agenda this evening? Address us? Perfect. Moving right along to item 6A is our public hearing regarding our proposed budget. We do need a motion to open the public hearing
I move that we open the public hearing.
and a second.
I will second.
And all in favor? Aye. Mr. Livingston.
Great, Madam President, members of the board. This public hearing then is an introduction, we can call it a first review, first look at our proposed budget for next year, the way the legislature has these set up. If we propose numbers tonight and the board approves them, that's called an approved proposed budget. And then by July 15th, which I believe the meeting will be held July 8th, second Monday in July, we'll have a meeting to adopt those numbers, and the numbers that we adopt then can't exceed the numbers that we put in tonight. So it's a preliminary look at next year's operating budget with all the other funds involved. And I'd like to just do a quick summary. The budget we've got prepared to propose tonight is $19,350,000 for the operating fund, $1.1 million for the capital fund. There's lots of variables within that. We don't know for sure how many students are going to be driving these budget figures. I used the last count we had as of May of 2024, which was 2,170 students. That's right where we left the current year. That's going to be my assumption. It could significantly change. It could be higher than that or lower than that. So that number is an unknown, our student count. We don't know that basically till the end of March after 100th day. And then the state looks at all of our student counts and they say these ones, the word is past integrity. They were here long enough with enough documentation to say they were in Chino Valley District. The state now waits till the last day for our 100 day. It's about February 24th, 25th. They wait until that last instructional day. Yeah, this is the count. I'm anticipating that's going to be at least what it was last year. The amount per student that we get in our operating fund is really close to $5,000, but the legislature hasn't approved that new amount. It's called the base level amount.
I'll talk about that in my report. They have actually, was $5,031 is what the number was.
So then that's just 2%. When I did this last week to get it into the board agenda, they hadn't approved it. So
Correct.
So they just took the 4,900 and change that they have this year, added 2% to it. So that's step one, but at least it's 2% higher. So that 2% then on top of that base level amount equals almost 300,000 to the budget. So if our student count stays the same, 2,170, and we get that extra 296,000, then our budget will rise from 19,350 to 19,640. If the student count stays the same. If it goes down or up, then that's the second variable. So we don't know our student count yet. We're just anticipating the same as last year. We do now, we can count on that, and we can get that at the July 8th meeting. We still have to use these same numbers for the July 8th meeting. So in October, we'll come back to you and we'll know what our base level is, amount per student, the 2% more than the 4,900, but we still won't know the student count until March of 2025. Another variable that we brought in, you can look at page 7 if you have a copy of the budget. We're bringing in from capital, because we've given over $1 million the last few years from our operating fund to our capital fund. We're bringing $350,000 back to M&O. And then, of course, the variable is what do we have that we're not spending in the current year, the 23-24 year? That would be the fourth variable. What we're able to bring into the next year. Last year, we brought in $1,064,000. I'm estimating that that'll be really close to the 24-25 carryover in from the current year. Another just over 1.1 billion. So you put all that together and it equal the 19,350,000 for next year's operating budget. Capital down from 2.4 million to 1.1 million. Capital down from the 23 year of 2.6 million down to $3 million this year down to $1.1 million next year for capital. But that's where we're at with capital. So one really strong fund is the classroom site fund. That's the one we've been able to use for some teacher salaries, and the projections are still quite rosy, even though there's concern that the base level for years and years for that per pupil was never higher than $272 per student. And that's based on sales tax revenue, et cetera. But this year it's still over $700. So we were able to do transferring, if you will, some teacher costs to that fund. And that fund is still based on a pretty strong, pretty robust economy. So that's really all I have for the public hearing. If we have comments or discussion, that's great. I do hope you approve that proposed budget, and we'll bring it back to you with the meeting to adopt in July.
Is there anyone that wishes to speak on the budget this evening during our public hearing? Seeing none, I will take a motion to close our public hearing.
Your turn.
A motion to close the public hearing.
Fantastic. In a second.
One second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving along to item 7A is our superintendent's report.
It says the May report, but it's actually June, so
I
please
didn't-
forgive me there. Talking about the budget, the legislative update, the legislative session ended this weekend. They did pass the state budget. I think they're still waiting on the governor's signature for some of those bills, but they should be signed in the next few days. Some of the things that really impacted the district, the one good thing, whoop, whoop, is the aggregate expenditure limit waiver was passed.
Thank heavens.
So we won't have to deal with any of that shenanigans going on in January, February. So that's a really good thing. It's not a permanent solution.
Yeah, that's why I said it's just a 1 year pass.
Correct. This is what they seem to do is in the current legislative session, the last 2 years have passed something for the next budget. So it's not a permanent solution because that would have to go to the voters as a solution, but at least it gets us through one more year without having to worry about it. The one thing that was interesting, I thought that something that we do is we issue contracts usually before spring break every year in March. We're now not allowed to do that until after March 15th. I don't know what the thinking on that is. Maybe people are trying to tie up staff too early, but it's likely going to mean instead of doing a board meeting before spring break, it's probably going to have to happen after spring break for those contracts. Unfortunately, it does give more time. We don't know who leaves until a lot of times contracts go out. And so that's going to shrink the hiring season, which is unfortunate. We will have a really good pool of new staff coming in. Almost all of them, if not all of them, are certified, which isn't always the case. And so we're really lucky this year. Hopefully that'll continue, but that just means less time to hire people, really. Small increases to additional assistance in M&O as Mr. Livingston spoke about. And for Ms. Brandy, the Kinder assessment tool is no longer required. So that was officially voted on, which was going to be a nightmare trying to get using their tool to assess these kindergartners in a timely fashion. It just wasn't really practical. So we can kind of use our own tool, which seems to be effective, and we can keep moving forward that way. So that's kind of the big things that impact the district for the most part. There were a couple things. I don't know what happened, what the result was, but that the increased additional assistance, and also there's basically a free and reduced lunch factor in there. They were thinking about making those only one year, and they'd have to approve them every year instead of a permanent solution. So that may have happened, but for the most part, it was really a quiet legislative session compared to some of the others that we've had. Not a whole lot of stuff that we were concerned with since January, I guess, is when it started. So not too bad. Questions about that? The HVAC installation, I was over at Territorial and they have all the ceilings tore out in the gym and the B building, which is the one right in front where the preschool is. So that was exciting. They were working on installing the ducting, the sheet metal ducting. It seems to be going along fairly steadily. We have a hard deadline. We got to get that done end of July for the beginning of school to start because there's nowhere to put those kiddos. So that's kind of the plan right now. And but it seems to be going along fairly quickly. Once they're done with that, then hopefully they'll move back to Heritage and finish the Heritage office. I know Miss Caitlin is in a portable right now, along with her assistant principal, scheduler, and her administrative assistant. So they're hoping to get back into their building, which there's no ceiling right now, and we're working with SFB to get that taken care of. So that's kind of where we're at now. They are, it's going to be a slog to try to get through this. We're trying to get portables for the schools, which is proving to be difficult, and some other things. So we are moving forward. So that's a good thing. Other stuff going on over the summer at Heritage. It's exciting news. There's the wood shop expansion. And so we have a patio outside the wood shop now. We're just going to closing that so we can have more kids during our woods classes, which always has a waiting list. So that's good news. At Del Rio, we have, and we're doing that project, by the way. Our staff is doing that expansion. And there's going to be a storage area also for wood objects. At Del Rio, a contractor is working on the quote weatherization, which means painting. Although there's some block work that has to be repaired as well, just some water damage that happened that they're working on. And then at Heritage and Territorial, we are getting a new floor in our cafeteria, new flooring in our cafeteria that's going to be paid for by SFB. Actually, the weatherization project is being paid for by SFB as well. We had a county health inspector come in and just suggest that we do that prior to his next inspection. And we were able to use that information to get it paid for by the state in order to replace that flooring.
What was wrong with the current floors, John?
They have to be a continuous floor and they're just old and there's cuts and some other things in there.
Well, this just breaks.
Right, and you can't, with that flooring, you can't really just patch it because then it creates other openings. The issue is they don't want places for moisture to collect and for gross stuff to grow and impact food and things like that.
Will they have to take out the existing floors or
Yes.
does this be on top?
No, this is like a sheet flooring.
Oh.
So we'll take out the sheet flooring, make sure that the slab underneath is dry, and then reinstall one continuous sheet floor in there. And part of it is we've had a lot of equipment move in and out. So there's been some damage due to that and some other, and just, I can't remember the last time we've done it. It's been a long time. So it was due. And so we're able to get it paid for by the state. So we're moving forward with that.
Well, that's nice, but
Yes, because it's incredible how expensive. John, do you remember what the cost to do those two projects were?
37 and 22, 59.
$60,000 to change the flooring in those two kitchens.
But we do get a bonus. Each one is about 3,000 less if they don't have to put in a moisture barrier per se. But if they do, then it's 6,000 more. So it could come in a little bit less.
Yeah.
The contractor said we may have to put in a moisture barrier here. That's really good. That's the issue, moisture getting into the stuff.
Mhm.
I guess you don't want to go cheap on something like that either.
Well, we want it to last, right? Because, we haven't done it for years. We don't want to do it while any of us are here, to be honest. Let the next administration take care of it. So that's kind of what's going on at the schools right now, other than the normal maintenance and cleaning that takes place. Want to invite you on the 27th at noon. We have our end of year celebration. Dr. Moody, hopefully, I have to talk to him to confirm, but hopefully he's doing smash burgers over here behind or at the high school in the quad area. And he going to bring his Blackstone, he said, and make smash burgers. We'll have potato salad, everything else. Just an opportunity for all the 12-month employees to get together and celebrate the end of the fiscal year. So That is on the 27th noon at Chino Valley High School. And if you flip it over, we finally received our Sodexo contract today. This is something that will allow us to continue our relationship with Sodexo. It has to be reviewed by the Department of Education, which I assume it's been submitted to our liaison at the ADE, so they can review it. Hopefully, it'll just take a few days to get that done. It was 1 page, 1.5 pages in length. It's not a hefty document. So, but it needs to be board approved, and we can't do it tonight. And it has to be done before the end of the month. So, what does that mean? It means a special board meeting. Miss Marcia can't be here next week. She's going on vacation. Mr. Fogel is on vacation next week. Ms. Mortensen said she can do it at 2:00 on Wednesday. I'm hoping that you are both available 2:00 on Wednesday. I am not, but Cindy said she will be here and we'll run the meeting. And we're talking about, it could be virtual, so you don't even have to be in the room if you don't want to. We're talking, 15-minute max to get us together.
What was the
If I don't
date,
have
John?
anyone, let me know. I can
Wednesday.
call.
Wednesday, the
Okay, and
26th?
then we may do that.
The 19th, 26th.
Yeah, I'm good.
2:00.
2 p.m. on the 26th works for both of you?
Have it in my calendar.
Okay. So
Let Annie know.
Karen will get an agenda out tomorrow probably.
Yeah.
And we'll have that available, and it'll be, so Wednesday at 2:00, we'll have our meeting to approve the Sodexo contract.
I said 5:00 for me.
Yeah. I think we should have a quorum. If there's an issue, we may give you a call, but I think it should be fine. So that's 6:26. Wednesday. Any questions on anything addressed in the superintendent? Oh, yes. And Sam, you'll have to forgive me. I don't know your last name. I'm gonna let you, why don't I let you introduce yourself? This is our new food service director with Sodexo.
Speaking of
Oh, yes,
Sodexo.
pleasure to meet you.
No, the camera will catch you.
Okay. Pleasure to meet you, President Thomas, members of the board. My name is Sam Schmalley. I am the new area general manager for Sodexo, in charge of the whole northern Arizona territory, if you will, ranging from here to next door, the neighbors in Cottonwood, and all the way down to Fountain Hills. From Gilbert, Arizona here, currently have my house here, there. I bring 10+ years of school food service experience to the table with affiliations with ADE, NDA, and CDE as well. So I've served in 3 different states, and I'm just glad to be back in Arizona and helping schools here, helping us thrive and feed children.
Welcome. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Yes, lovely place, and been here for 2 weeks, and we're going strong.
And there's actually an agenda item later on the agenda to maybe put him in a tiny home. So we're hopeful but we're excited to have him. He brings some good experience and we've had some good interactions with him over the last couple of weeks. So
That's great.
we're glad he's here.
Thank you. That's great. Any other questions for Mr. Scholl? His last superintendent's report. Anything y'all want to ask? Okay. All right, then. Item 7B1 is financial reports. Mr. Livingston, please.
Okay, looking at the month ended May 31st, 2024. May was a busy month for our budget. It got increased by about $1.3 million. We took it up to $20,004,000 for our operating budget. We did that on May 13th, the end of the month. We had a budget then of $20,004,000 for our operating. We spent $18,192,000, which was 90.5% of the budget, but almost 92% of the days gone as of the end of May. There's only 30 days left in June, so we like that when we have a little lag, rather than spend 95% of the budget, when only 50% of the days have gone. We don't like that. So we have that nice little 0.08 of a percent there, so we like a little drag that way. Capital, we've got a budget still of the 2 million. We'd spent 64% of that. We do have some encumbrances left. Some in our operating fund, of course, our salaries, benefits. We've got utilities and fuel. Capital, we do have a few items that are still encumbered as well. And our policy has been for the last 3 years to just really scrutinize everything in that capital budget. And we've been able to buy, I think, 1.2 million in curriculum the last few years, just because we've been able to do that, and it's been really helpful to have those capital dollars. Ending cash overall in the district, 6.6 million. The report there that shows cash is, I'd like to just focus on that for just a second. The one that's got the vertical and it's got starting at 010 in the upper left corner, and it goes down to 959, yeah, the one that Mr. Tone is looking at there. It's not really deceiving, it's just, it's got to be written in a certain way to show encumbrances. So if we take a look at Fund 691, it's about 10th from the bottom. It shows the beginning cash of 0. And what we do when we pay bills like tomorrow, well, Wednesday, we're paying another $700,000 in bills out of this fund. So we wait for those revenues to clear the county account from the school facilities board, and then we match the revenues to those expenditure invoices, and then we pay that. So after we pay our bills we've got 7 different contractors we're paying out of there, cash always goes back down to 0. So when we started the 23-24 year, cash was a 0. If you come along there, you see the total revenues, 12,002,000. So that's what we've brought in, 12,002,000. The reason expenditures are a little bit different is some of those, if you remember back in July, August, September, up to October last year, we were spending money out of indirect costs and out of M&O to pay Millennium Gas, because they shook our hand with us June 26th and said, we'll have Del Rio's gas lines in by August, gosh, it was July 26th. They discovered the leak in the gas lines at Del Rio. By August 4th, they had them completely redone. But they said, when we need payment, we're going to need payment tomorrow. We can't wait around for the state. So the expenditures are a little funky there. I'll have to true those up. It's more than 9 million. It's 12 million spent. But
You
some
had
of
to
those,
make sure it was just moving into that account.
right,
ahead
we
of
move it
time.
in short-term, borrow it,
Right.
and then once the cash from the state comes in, so that's why we've got a little bit of that. But 12,002,000 has come in, and then you follow it across to the encumbrances of 19 million, and then you see the ending budget balance, 17 million. That's not quite right. It's just that those encumbered amounts, like we've still got $7 million encumbered for the high school. We've only paid them about $350,000 for the high school HVAC, because they don't have any units going. They've been getting materials on site. So we've got to encumber that same amount for next year. Same with territorial. We haven't paid them much. I think we paid them almost $600,000 on a $5.2 million budget for territorial. So those 13 million are all encumbered for next year. So the encumbrances are the most accurate thing here, about 19 million.
And those will carry out in the next
Yep.
month. You'll show them again
Yep.
in the new budget.
So there's 3 things going on. There's beginning cash and then revenue, then there's expenditures and encumbrances. And those encumbrances kind of drag that ending budget balance down. So you're seeing 2 things. You're seeing cash, but you're also seeing encumbrances which have nothing to do with cash. So, but it's a liability that we have to hang on to. So it's kind of overstated. So, but the one that's perfect, so to speak, is 010 at the front end, the very top one. There is actually at the end of April exactly that amount, that 1.4 million cash in there, because we don't count encumbrances. For those, we just pay them 4 times a year. This is our teacher special fund. We just pay them 4 times a year. So whoever's here at the time and the principals approve that they're on course and meeting standards, we pay them that amount that we give them. This year was $13,500 per full-time teacher that met all the standards. So that fund is doing extremely well. And that, but again, it has no encumbrances. So any questions on the month-end report? Again, I anticipate out of the $20 million M&O budget, we'll have at least $1 million to carry forward to next year. All I have.
Any questions? Any investors? All right. Mr. Livingston, Student Activity Fund report, please.
Great, so that's on the following page, and that's when our purchasing person, Charlie Allsup, purchasing and accounts payable does. And if you look there in the encumbrance column, second from the right, you see there's no encumbrances. So that 164,000 cash has no encumbrances against it. So,
Better not be, they're not in school anymore.
yeah, so because that is connected with the student motion, a student body motion to approve expenditures. So way to go, anyone that's involved in watching student activity accounts. They had their last meeting to approve their last expenditures before school let up. So then we could write those checks. And one of the later things was in May, I believe. Mrs. Crawford might correct me, but I think they went on the senior trip in May. Is that right? So then that was the last big expenditure from student council, went to California. It was all approved, funds were in the account. All I can say is really well done on the student activity. Takes a lot of time and dedication on the part of our staff to make it work. That's all I have on student activities.
Thank you so much. Item 7C is our Chino Valley Unified School District Workforce Housing Project. Mr. Schulman.
So 6 months ago, I was, several superintendents were approached by Tim Carr, the county superintendent, saying, hey, there's another housing grant. And you got a month to take care of it, to get everything in. And so actually, no one was ready for it. And so no one applied for it. And so the county schools office said, hey, there's going to be another opportunity in September for this. And so that gave us plenty of time to plan. And so I've been talking to Cindy and then also Chris Sheriff, who's our facilities director. And we have a piece of land at the high school that I thought would be an ideal location, which is on the northeast corner over behind the softball field. And we have done a great job about getting our single teachers housing. We could use something for more family housing. So there is, again, the opportunity for this grant. We also have been told that if we partner with other entities, that we might have an advantage in being awarded this grant. And so we have reached out to the town of Chino Valley to see if they would like police housing, along with the Central Arizona Fire and Medical Authority, to see if they would like firefighter housing. And both of those entities were excited to hear about this grant opportunity. We met, Cindy and I met with both groups. And so we have, if you look on the, there's a satellite picture of kind of like the location. You can see the softball field there. And then there is Chris Sheriff reached out to somebody who owed us a favor, and they kind of drew up some plans. And so right now on that 6,100 square foot area, which is behind the softball field, and we would move in the softball field fence, we would move it in. The softball coach wants that because there's a temporary fence now. We're not hitting enough home runs. And so they'd like the fence in a little closer, so that would provide some more area. We are thinking that we can put 4 duplexes or 8 units on that property of the 61,000 square feet. We have access to Road 1 East through an easement. So the residents would not have to travel through the school. They could directly come off of 1 East to that property. It's 1,300 square foot homes, 3 bedroom, 2 bath homes. Easily, it could either be multiple single people or families that could live there. We're thinking also longer than just maybe the transitional housing. This may be longer term housing. But the neat thing about it is this would be a $3 million project. We'd only have to come up with 10% of the funding. So that means that we could potentially come up with 8 housing units. And what the proposal would be $100,000 from our school district, $100,000 from CAFMA, $100,000 from the town of Chino Valley. And then the 4th contribution would be the school district providing the land. And so because we would be providing half of the donation or the contribution, we would get half of those housing units. So it would be 4 housing units for the district. And then each additional $100,000 would get 2 additional housing units. So the town would get 2 units. The CAFMA would get 2 units. They decide who stays there and how they want to use those housing units. They're theirs to do that. Just like ours, housing units would be for us to decide. We would all be on the same rent amount, things like that. And then it would all be all 3 entities maintaining these housing units. This would all be contingent on obtaining the grant. Right now we're being told it's a $30 million direct grant from the federal government through Senator Kelly's office, and for workforce housing. So that would be, this is an ideal solution. It would be the exact same process for selecting the grant awardees as we were awarded last time. We have evidence that we can deliver on what we say we're going to do. That would be an advantage. We have the partnership. We have, ideally, we would have support from the other two entities. This is just information only. At some point down the road, we'd come to to you for an IGA. We just are kind of testing the water to see what kind of interest there is from the board. Cindy and I are meeting with the town council next Tuesday for a study session to give them the same information and to kind of, so that they have this, we can kind of get an idea from them what, how they feel about it. So again, our partners would be CAFMA and the town. Estimated cost would be $3 million. Only $300,000 would have to come from the partners. 8 units. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. 2 for CAFMA, 2 for the fire department, or the police department, 4 for us. And this is being, the fiscal agent is Coconino County, and the operational agent is Yavapai County. That means those 2 counties have the first opportunity to apply for this grant. This is the same thing happened in the last grant. Then it opens up to the 13 rural counties. And so really, I think we have a really good chance if the grant is out there to get this money, if we can move forward with some kind of plan. We have a location. We have, a
Track record.
Yeah, a track record. We also have a plan of what we want to do. If we can get the support from the other 2 entities, we can show that. And so that's what kind of wanted to throw it out there and answer any questions you may have. And again, we're not voting on anything or asking, just kind of get the feel for what the board thinks about this.
We went through Coconino to get our first housing grant, didn't we?
It was the same thing.
Yeah.
The Yavapai County Schools Office was the one that actually evaluated the proposals.
Yeah.
They awarded it. Coconino County was the fiscal agent.
Right. Okay.
So
Same basic process this
that's
time.
the same. It's going to be the same committee even that approves the project. And we were told that just because you got it the first time does not mean anything as far as negatively for the second go round. It would be positive things that it would impact. So
I know the town's excited about the project, so.
I can't think of anything bad to say.
trying the cost to do this normally at $3 million, none of us would be able to afford it. If we can get this grant, it's free, free money. A 90% match is enormous. And so we can't pass up this opportunity, in my opinion.
Much better than the first 10.
Yeah, that was only a 1/3 match.
Yeah.
So we had to come up with the other $1 million to do that. We can get, figure for us, it'd be 2640, 5,200 square feet, which is less than what we paid for or that we have over there. But no, it's actually more than what we got over there for 1/15 of the cost.
It's hard to think of any negatives on this.
And the utility wise, the nice thing is there's sewer access off of 1 East. There is, we have water, which we'd actually do City of Prescott water. Electrical we'd have to bring in, but the utilities are right there also. So it's kind of a great location because of utilities and access, and it wouldn't impact the rest of the campus. It's not like it's central campus or anything. So it's kind of land that's vacant now. So it works out really well.
Any other comments?
I think it'd be great to help some other teachers or some people who
Mhm.
need help with housing.
Great. All right, well, no other questions, then we'll go to item 7D, our 23-24 retention information. Ms. Wolf.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, Mr. Stoll, Ms. Daniels. I wanted to share with you information regarding our retention rate of our certified staff, which includes teachers and counselors. And we're really happy with our numbers. You can see that I gave you the total teachers, and the 0.5 is that we have some positions that are half at, maybe at one school or another, or we have people that work just part-time for us. And then you can see that the information given about resignations. So we started off with a total of 127 FTE, or full-time equivalent teachers. And then we had 22 resignations, 2 terminations, 7 retirees. And then I took off of there the position reductions, because we had 2 positions at each site that we did not fill.
Because of the budget limitation.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you look at that, you can see that we've went ahead and retained, for the majority of the schools, about mid-80s %, which I think is really good. And it shows that, we're having still about a third of our, or a little less, between 20 to 30% of our staff leaving, but I feel that the numbers have increased since last couple of years. Then below that, the classified staff was just paraprofessionals and office staff, because I was looking at the numbers that really pertain to the schools and their staff there. And you can see that we had 90 total employees, 19 resignations, 3 terminations, and 4 retiring. So you can see that overall, we had about 29% that left, and we retained 71%. And those are things that I have for my goals for next year in the HR department, is to look at retention and how we can have our employees stay with us, especially for the amount of time and effort they put into their education and we put into helping them get to where they need to be. So.
Either of you have any questions for Ms. Wolf while she's here on this one? Thank you for the information. That was very helpful. Moving on to our consent agenda, if we could get a motion to approve items A through P.
I will move to approve items A through P.
Fantastic.
The second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Item 9A, teacher performance evaluation adoptions.
Madam President, members of the board, happy June. I'm gonna have Annika come up here with me. And we are here to request that we adopt a new teacher evaluation. It's not really new, it's just updated. It's the same program, framework, Charlotte Danielson. But we went to the state, and the state has improved their tool. And so this is based off of the state's tool. So we're here for questions, or you have it in your, I don't know if you had time to look at it. We followed the policy.
We've spent about 1 million hours
Yes.
on this.
I can't tell you how many hours we spent on it. And then
The committee.
we had the committee, so we had a special ed teacher. We had 2 gen ed teachers. One is a self-contained teacher. One was a content teacher from the high school. We had an elective teacher, Ms. Annika. And we had 4 instructional coaches, and then Brandy and myself. And we started on this in February, and we looked at 2 different frameworks, and the committee chose Charlotte Danielson. So Brandy and I really just let the teachers look at this and coaches and decide what's best for them, because they would know the purpose of the tool is to improve instruction. So we really wanted input and buy-in from teachers.
Julie, and I'm expressing my total ignorance, I thought we had a prior evaluation process. Or was this the first time we've done this?
We did about, gosh, I want to say, how long did we do that? 12 years ago?
No, I thought
You were on the board back
way
then.
back then, I thought we, that's why it was,
It's time to update it.
No, that's.
And I have to tell you, this was our third go at it. Over the years, Brandy and I have served on 3 different committees. And every time we would start on it, it was just so overwhelming and we're like, okay, we'll just keep it. And it still matched the state, but this time we stuck with it and we had a great committee. And they were really determined to make a difference in the teachers. Annika, do you have anything?
Just that the conversations were really wholesome and had the best interest of all stakeholders, not just teachers, but the kids, the community, and the people being evaluated, as well as the people who will be evaluating. It's color coded and Julie was really proud of that, but as somebody reading it, it's easy to read and it's easy to know which domain as a teacher being evaluated, what it is that they're looking at and why. As well as the evaluator, I imagine, can probably just channel it a little bit better. It was the mindset of growing was a big piece. So rather than having staff who are not, where they should be, or maybe they need to work on something, and they're maybe feeling like they're being put down. It's more of we want to improve. We want to give them the tools and the resources that they need to improve on whatever it was that they were docked on, so that they can come back stronger and better. And then serve our kids. So the appendixes and the live doc and stuff show all of the forms for those remedial processes, as well as self-evaluations, video evaluations, which I hate watching myself teach, but.
So that is something new we added, Peter, that wasn't with the old evaluation. In this evaluation tool, in order for a teacher to be highly effective, they have to videotape themselves at least 20 minutes with instructing a class, and they have to do a self-reflection.
That's cool.
And take that back to their principal. The principal won't ever see the video, just the teacher will, and they'll have to fill out the self-reflection that's in here in the packet. And what was the other thing we added? We added the video self-reflection. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, the instructional coach, thank you. We added the instructional coach into this evaluation, and so the teachers will have to do a professional growth plan, and they'll have to do that and work with their instructional coach to write that plan based on their current evaluation. So where do I need to grow? So once this gets started, that will happen in the spring once they finish their evaluation. And the instructional coach will work with the teachers to do that. And then the instructional coach will meet with the principals and give the principal all of those professional growth plans.
Great questions. Do you know of any other districts that's utilizing this tool?
There are districts in the state, but
Just
not
have you?
not in the 2 surrounding ones. Actually, one surrounding one didn't want to share. And then the other one is using a different framework.
Not a problem. Okay, that,
About how long is this process going to take for?
So there's a timeline. So if you go to, it's going to be in the appendix, right?
One thing they did really, really well was clarify all the language that described the teacher's performance. Before, there were so many things that were ambiguous about it that it was more subjective.
Right.
So
It was very subjective, and we wanted to take subjectiveness out of this because a teacher could be evaluated by 3 different principals and come up with 3 different scores. And we wanted to take that terminology out of this. And either they master it or they don't. So we wanted that. So if you go to your appendixes, you want to go through those? To help me? So the timeline is there for the principal and the teacher to follow and the instructional coach.
Fantastic.
Okay, and then if you go to appendix B, like Cindy said, it's really explained in here what is expected of the teacher and what the principal should be looking for. We gave a summary of each domain, which those 4 domains are Charlotte Danielson. And then there's a rubric. And the rubric, our goal is for every teacher to be effective. If they're highly effective, then that's wonderful. But we, as you can see, it's bolded, the effective. And if you look in that rubric, we also give attributes. And so that's what another example, this kind of describes what they could be doing to be effective. And then there's an artifacts. If you go Appendix D, it gives artifacts that the teacher can share with their principal for each domain.
Because she may not see everything in this evaluation tool, the time that she's with me for that hour or. And so I can come back after and say, you know, you didn't see the student portfolio, but here it is, and this is evidence for domain, whatever.
That's wonderful. As an employer and an employee, I know how important this process is. And the reason why I was asking the time frame is usually the more in-depth you have to get into it, the less likely people are to do it. But the thing I have found is, number one, there should never be anything on an evaluation that they don't already know. And that means constant communication, and this is what this is doing.
That's right, Cindy. And they will be, principals and instructional coaches will be using that tool for their walkthroughs as well. They would not go in for a walkthrough looking for all 4 domains, but they would choose a domain they're going to focus on. That would be my recommendation, is to choose a domain you're going to look for that month during your walkthroughs. Let your teachers know you're looking for this.
Particular one.
And because under each domain are best practices that every teacher should be doing and every principal should be looking for. There should be no questions wondering, what am I doing wrong or what should she be doing?
I think it's more valuable to the employee,
I do
knowing
too.
what's going on year round rather than now there's the evaluation and you know what, everything you've been doing wrong
Right.
instead of right. I like it.
I'm gonna say
Well, I
this.
have one criticism. No.
Do you find a misspelling?
No, Appendix C, if you're over 40, you can't see that size type.
I agree, but I just have to hold it closer, Peter.
No,
So do
and
you.
I did that, and it still hurt my eyes by the time I got
We
done.
wanted it to fit on the page nicely, didn't we?
So please, I guarantee you, you have some staff, you have over 40 staff on, because had to be trying to read this stuff. With a chart like that. No, really, I tell you, I was.
I know, it's hard. And we'll work on that, Peter. We need to make the print bigger.
I'm done. Just gonna say.
Peter will do that. for you.
Agonized over.
Yeah. Hopefully this.
I'll tell you, there are many, many hours. Our committee spent many hours, and then Brandy and I took what our committee requested and spent hours and hours. I'm not a computer guru, so Brandy is, so she spent hours formatting.
Well, format's great. You
Like your format.
No.
Brandy's having a hard time hearing.
Some of us can't see, some of us can't hear, you know, what do we say?
Well, and
Just smile.
hopefully this tool will help retain teachers too, because they'll know where they're at and what they need to improve on, and they can work on that. And if the teacher's showing I'm improving, that's when they should be praised for that, you know?
Right. Open and
So,
honest.
yes.
Yes.
All right, well, this is an action item. If we could get a motion to approve the evaluation adoption.
Your turn, Peter.
Then I will move on agenda item 9A, adoption of the teacher performance evaluation partially, let's say with an amendment of larger type size.
No,
We will send one to you, Peter.
Thank you, Beth.
I will second.
fantastic. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you very much.
Item 9B, teacherage staff housing. Like it's you to get this one.
So our, currently our ADA unit has not been utilized this school year. So, and our policy states that district housing shall be reserved for full-time district employees. And a lot of our employees don't like the layout. It's personally my favorite, but you know, I'm not renting it. But they don't like it because it's one big room. The kitchen's off to the side, and then there's a living area and the bedroom. Because you would need that room for somebody that would be in a wheelchair or whatever. And so we are we were asked about renting it out to one of our Sodexo partners. And totally happy with the unit. The other units, we currently have 4 units available. One has been spoken for by a teacher, new teacher to us. And the ADA units, another one that's available. We have 2 more available. My plan is, which I've sent out emails asking if we have even classified staff that are interested in the units. So what I'm looking for today is to get your permission to waive the policy just for that particular unit, not the other units.
With all the same policy, the 2-year term and that sort of thing still exist.
Yes. Yeah, all of the same. They'll sign a lease and they'll have to do the same with the deposit, first, last month deposit and all that stuff. And under the same rules of no smoking, no drugs, no pets, those things will still be part of that. Okay. Any questions, Marcia?
No, okay. This is also an action item, if we can get a motion to approve the teacher staff housing policy.
I will motion to approve the waive of the policy GCBDA-RA so that Sodexo, I'm sorry, food service manager can rent the ADA teacher unit.
Fantastic.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Welcome home. Item 9C, personnel report.
Alrighty, so you have the personnel report for June and also a small supplement. We have 6 new certified staff teachers, 5 new classified, 6 resignations, 1 termination, 1 individual declined the offer of employment, 2 certified changes, 16 classified changes, 3 extra duties, and 187 timesheets.
Anyone have any questions on tonight's personnel report?
Number 18, what does that mean? Resignation by default?
Well, that's because it's a classified substitute. That's a great question. And what happens is that the HR department, Shelley, she reaches out to our subs and sees if they want to continue being a sub for our classified positions in the district. And this person never responded to emails or phone calls.
So in
Yeah.
effect, that's what we're calling it.
Yes.
All right, seeing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to accept tonight's personnel report along with supplement.
It's my turn, so I will see on agenda item 9C. I move to approve the personnel report, including the supplement.
And I was second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, item 10A, Mr. Livingston, thank you. Budget.
Yes.
My train of thought.
Yes, members of the board. So item 10, proposed budget, I mentioned a few factors. I'll review them. And then the way I see it, there's mainly 4 factors in play. And then there's another one that I didn't speak about earlier. Student count, I just estimated for the beginning of the school year to use last year's ending student count of 2,170. That's average daily membership. That's not taking into account all the heads and seats. That's the weighted student count that we end up with for our actual daily membership. The base level has been increased, but we'll leave that now at the $4,914 per student. We know that's going up 2% to just over 5,000. We're basing 350,000 coming back from the capital fund, back to the operating fund. That reduces the capital fund for next year to 1.1 million, bumps the operating fund up to 19,350,000. And I mentioned these briefly before. Page 5 of the budget, there's a really small spot there to put in. So if you want to do it adjacent ways levy. We've done that the last several years. And we propose an adjacent ways levy. It's right in the middle of page 5. And it's got a little sign there. District at the very bottom, writing page 5, districts that are levying any amount for adjacent ways must, in the truth and tax worksheet, use this number. And it's got a $350,000 number there. that increases the tax. We went through this the other day with President Thomas and with Tim Daniels. Increases the rate right now, it's $9.93 up to $12.66. So $100,000 home assessed value in the district, that's what the tax rate, that's what assessed value is for the tax purposes, was paying $99.30 per 100,000 evaluation. Now that'll jump to $126 per valuation. So if you've got a $200,000 basis for your home, it's 126 times 2, or $252. So a slight increase. This year's levy was $250,000. Next year would jump to $350,000, jump $100,000 for the district. We ended the year with about $240,000. We add the $350,000 next year. So that would lead us into a good spot to do 2 or 3 things. We've got a quote from Roadrunner Asphalt. They do a lot of fire lane work. And we got a quote from them for over $1.4 million for some adjacent ways eligible expenses for next year. Things like fire lanes, things like bringing in fire lane over here to the to the houses on the east side that we might put in. Just for the fire lane this year at the mini houses on the west side of Del Rio. And that was $70,000 to put in that fire lane from this portion of it. It didn't cover it all. And the work south of Del Rio, just the work south where we put in French drains, we put in parking, we made the parking areas there for the fire lane, was $430,000. So we have slurry seal coats, we have chip seal we can do in several places to increase the lifespan of fire lanes. We also have some subsurface soil that has moisture issues and other issues. We got a quote from Roadrunner for $1.3 million to do some fire lane approvals. Hopefully that'll stand up for the next couple of years. And we can chunk these over the summer months when fire lane operations are approved rather than during the school year where we really interfere with traffic. So that would be an additional factor that we want to increase that by $100,000 this year.
A quick question. Are all the improvements around the perimeter of Territorial now done, as we talked about earlier?
I believe several of those are not done.
Because
I walked every square foot of the fire lanes last March of 2023
Yeah.
with Sunland Asphalt and with James from Roadrunner. And that was one of the places to the north of Territorial especially that still need to be improved.
Well, because you can't go that way because of the construction, but last time I went, it looked like there's an awful lot yet to do. That's why I was asking the question.
Then, for instance, this area immediately south of the district office might be 130 by 90 feet wide. That's all considered fire lane. That's all considered eligible for adjacent waste funding. And you don't get adjacent waste funding unless you do the taxation piece. And then we have to notice that in the July meeting with another public hearing, and then just respond and we can present our needs. And it's a really effective way of increasing these. Otherwise, we have to take it out of our capital or out of our operating fund that are really, really tight. District maintenance for fire lanes. And again, the one on the east side, there would be an expectation if we move forward with CAFMA and the local PD that we would put in the fire lane on our own property, and this would help us with that. Now, there may be some grant funding a little bit available for that, but this is we don't want to end up short when we're trying to put in housing. We don't have these fire lane dollars available. So I propose that the budget then is sound and valid the way it's written. Any questions, further questions?
No, I just want to reiterate that I'm glad that we're raising the adjacent waste. I'll be honest, there was another proposal to go even higher. I was on board, but they talked sense into me, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, this also is an action item. I'll entertain a motion to approve tonight's expenditure proposed budget.
I will approve, motion to approve the FY 24-25 district expenditure proposed budget.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 11A, UFLI phonics adoption.
Madam President, members of the board, I'm up here again. So we are going to talk this time about some phonics curriculum for Territorial. I came to you a couple of months ago and asked if we could pilot it, and Territorial had several teachers pilot the program. And we had our last meeting on May 15th, and I just want to read some of the comments from everyone. Do please note that I had 3 parents, 3 teachers, and administration at both of my adoption piloting meetings. So one thing that happened, not only did they pilot it, but Lizzie, their instructional coach, did a training, a presentation of the U-Fly curriculum to the entire staff. There was a 95% attendance at that meeting. I was there as well. I was very impressed with Lizzie and how well she presented it. And the teachers seemed to be very excited about it. Not only were they teachers there, but there were classified personnel there as well, which is wonderful. And the teachers that piloted it said they are seeing an increase of confidence by their students. And that a parent comment was that my child went from not wanting to read to reading every night. And so they were very excited that confidence was there with their child. The consistency helps the students become comfortable, and it helps students stay on task. They know what to expect. And their scope and sequence, I know Brandy's teachers worked hard creating a scope and sequence with the curriculum they have now, the Wonders program. And they combine U-Fly and the Wonders together. So I've seen it, it's a beautiful, nicely formatted scope and sequence. And color-coded, primary, very primary. It's a spiral, so that is really one thing the teachers like as well. So I recommend that you vote to adopt this new curriculum, U-Fly. Like I said, I used this 20 years ago, and when I taught first grade, and I absolutely loved it. So.
Questions?
Anything to help the children learn.
That's right.
I think it'd be very beneficial.
Alrighty, then seeing no other questions, we'll entertain a motion to approve the phonics program.
I guess on agenda item 11A, I move the adoption of the UFLI phonics program.
Thank you.
And I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay, item 12A. Tonight is just the first reading of some revised policies, IJNDB, use of technology resources in instruction.
I found this kind of amusing. One change was they took out a reference to compact discs and floppy disks when it comes to technology. But mainly it has to deal with, or it deals with how AI, artificial intelligence, should be used in a classroom and as part of instruction. They talk about using it in an ethical manner, something that can be accessed to all students, those that are English language students or maybe have disabilities of some kind. But really, it just provides some general guidance as far as be careful with how you use it, is how I kind of read it. This was provided to us by the ASBA, so this is their policy that they would give to all districts. It's not something that we put together. And again, it's a first reading, so things can be changed between now and then, but pretty generic stuff.
Do you know if there are any examples of the AI that could be used in the classroom or would be?
Well, I know that in some cases, there are students that are using AI to generate their work, which isn't necessarily, that's not their work necessarily, but yeah.
Translation is so using translation programs, AI programs to translate. Like if a teacher gives a handout in English and we have a student who has no English skills whatsoever, they're using like Google Translate for an example, which is a type of AI. It translates it for them, it can read it to them in English and Spanish and things like that. So that's when we were using it to enhance learning right now. But as John pointed out, we've had a few students wander into plagiarism land. But the high school has subscribes for years.
Turnitin.com.
Yeah, to turnitin.com, and we've been subscribing to that for probably 7 or 8 years. And it's a program that allows teachers to run students' work through that AI program to identify whether it's been plagiarized or not.
Just curious for the viewers.
Because some parents are concerned about AI. You know, But I do like that helping children to translate from their language to English or English to their language so they can understand.
And that was the main reason why I asked for examples, because to me, that's just technology. That's
Yeah.
Right,
not a figure that's been produced, so.
right.
Well, and that was gonna be my only comment. AI has gotten to be such a generic term
Mhm.
Right.
that there's some neat live streaming programs I've been watching. Some of the national papers have had programs and all that. And it leaves me more confused than enlightened, just because it is what we want to talk about it. And that was my sort of main question here, but I think the example of the language one is a supremely good example of, I call it just plain technology rather than AI.
Same here.
So the AI won't be taking over actually teaching our children is what I'm concerned
I
about.
don't know, Marcia, our retention rates are pretty good, so I think we're okay.
But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, humanoid robots are not going to replace teachers in our lifetime.
I'm
I'm just
hoping no.
I'm impressed, obviously, I'm using AI and I didn't know it, so this is
It's
awesome.
pretty amazing. No, we don't have no plan on the horizon to replace instructors with artificial intelligence personnel.
Because children need as much.
Absolutely.
You know,
Human beings.
yeah, especially in this day and age.
Well, this is just a first reading, so there's no action to be taken on it. And we move to item 12B, which is the first reading of new policy DAA fund balances. Mr. Livingston.
Okay, this came, I guess, to more scrutiny or to more notice when I was doing the annual financial report last year for the October meeting that we had in Halden, I believe. And there's now a page that you have to fill in your unspent fund balance on the annual financial report. So if you've got a $1 million budget and you spend $900,000, your unspent amount is that $100,000. So that would be a 10% unspent amount, and the state likes to consider that a fund balance that's left over for the next year. And so many districts are struggling with that now, keeping those respectable or what they consider within range. I've talked to the Auditor General, what do you consider is in range? And it's pretty hard to ignore for years and years and years and years. They look at 4%. So that $1 million budget, if you spend 960,000, you've got 40,000 left. Let's say if you don't have 40,000 left over on $1 million operating budget, you may not have enough to operate the first few months of next year. If a slight increase in, say, state retirement rates comes along. I came to Arizona, those of you that were working in Arizona Public Employee Pension back in 1999, 2.4% of my salary was put into my own account, and then the employer would match it by 2.4%. And it was so low that we had employees in Coconino County that weren't even on it. They thought it was just a joke. So they would take their employer and their own money and stick it into a 401k and thought that was better. Well, now it's 12.2% because they've increased it because they couldn't reach payouts. So they've increased it. So we have nothing to say if ASRS increases that from 12.2 to 15%. We have nothing to say if the federal government increases the 6.2% for Social Security to 8.5%. We just have to adapt. We have nothing to say if minimum wage jumps like it has the last 5 years. So we have to have some reserve. So after some discussion, I've just some data. The Auditor General's got reports on 207 school districts. If you go, I think it's the second to last page in your packet, you see a nicely colored report. Thank you, Karen. I think I gave you some of these copies. You've got yellow, you've got red, you've got blue. You don't have any pink or green or orange. You've got yellow, red, and blue. And they kind of indicate a pattern. They draw out 4 districts that are in extreme difficulties right now, making current, the big deal is to make current obligations. So if you can't make payroll, you can't pay for your accounts payable, you're in one of these 4 districts. It gives you the names to the left of these 4 districts. And they all have at least 5 knockouts on these 10 factors. We've got 2, if you go to the page just up from there, change in fund balance, according to their data from the 23 year, says we've got a fund balance issue, high risk financial position, general fund, change in fund balance. And then, so we would be one of the 27 out of 207. That's the only real serious mark that they have for Chino Valley District right now. I don't really know if it's reasonable to try to say 8%. I looked at one district down in the valley. I think it was Tolleson District. They had 15% goal for fund balance. So on that $1 million budget, they'd be spending $850,000 and then they'd stop. And I don't know if that's,
Good luck.
I don't know if that's really realistic. If you have a lot of one-time money that's coming in, donations, like back in the day, there were some grants in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s from Bill and Melinda Gates. They were one-time software and hardware grants. Those, if you're living off money like that, it's a slippery slope. You don't want to. You want to live off your foundation funds. Like our $20 million budget for the current year, 12 million came from the state, 8 million came from local property tax. You could say that basically. Sure, there were some other funds. So we're positively funded by the state. Other districts get nothing from state equalization. It's all done on the property tax. But those are just things that I think if we make a goal and say, go back to the $1 million at the annual financial report that I bring to you in October, if we had $1 million budget, I would have to state again what our fund balance policy said, which I couldn't really say last year. I said our fund balance objective, but I couldn't really tie it to a policy. If it was 4% and we spent 950,000, we'd still be under that, we'd make it because our fund balance would let us spend 960 on a budget of $1 million, 4% would be that 40,000 left. Well, last year I just said it was 4%. And we came in with maybe 30,000 that we hadn't spent. But if I made it to 5%, we didn't quite need that. So it's a goal that we have lots of variables. We look at overall cost. We look at overall staffing. We've got a staffing plan to stay within our staffing limits and our staffing plan. And then we look at overall revenues and decide, and all of those have to be in balance. And I think we spend a lot of time on it. I gave you a copy. Hopefully it was in your packet. We do have a policy called DA, fiscal management. I don't know if that made it in your packets, but I cited that. There's 5 priority objectives in your policy DA. And the one that I focus on is to maintain within budget limits a level of per student expenditure needed to provide high quality education. I don't know if you got that.
It was not put in there.
So that's just one that we have. If you approve one here, you might call it DAA or DA2 or I did put in a sample, but I cited those. So this is a draft. If you want to, and it's on the agenda item, I guess, the draft. And I just put in those in bold there, reasonable level of unspent budget balance. And the operating fund is 4%. That would mean it would be unspent annually. Capital would be, and capital is powerful because it can go back to operating budget if we need it, would be 20%. So any other comments, this would be a good time. We bring this back for approval and adoption at the July meeting.
The only note I want to point out is on the policy, proposed policy says BAA, and it should be D as in dog AA. So we can make those changes between now and we'll have a corrected version for the adoption.
I'm just glad our school district is doing pretty good. As far as
We tried to really follow that policy we already have, DAA, best policy, best possible budgeting, and then greatest educational return. But it's really a balance because you can give up something to get something else. But you just try to do that cost benefit
This again was just a first reading, no action this evening. However, with that, see y'all next week. Well, maybe, probably not.
No.
A few people will be here next.
Yeah.
I'll be here.